Because there is no corporate interest at patreon.com, we can speak. We can say what's on our minds. It's one of the few places left on the internet that is truly viewer-controlled and creator-driven. Hundreds have joined us in the last week. If you would like to, it's only $1 per month, 3 pennies a day. And that basically is enough to shut the door on advertisers, shut the door on corporate America, shut the door on people who would control thought, people who would control speech. And that's why I try to lead each video with it. Because I truly think eventually everyone who wants to speak will have to be there. But I think that's down the road. In today's video at Patreon, we talk about this. We also talk about how Kamala Harris accidentally told the truth. And even though it was the same truth the woman on the right spoke, nobody said anything about it. And we finally reveal which one of these women is actually being biblically modest. And we show Bible verse to show it. Now, what if I told you many years ago in a series Star Trek, they subtly, without being too forward about it, revealed the truth of Antarctica? Now, I know a lot of you who've seen the series are looking at this picture and going, what does Denise Crosby have to do with Antarctica? I don't remember any of the episodes talking about Antarctica. There was Stargate, they talked about it a lot, but not Star Trek. You see, they were incredibly subtle about it. They did it in a way that nobody saw. The first place we have to go is this race of characters called the Romulans. Now, they were a very strange group. They actually have been part of the Star Trek franchise going all the way back to the very first, back in the 60s. And they were the somewhat obscure, recluse versions, aggressive versions of the Vulcans. Now, this is the key part here. They were very androgynous. That's number one, which is why this character was so key, because she ended up actually becoming a Romulan in a different timeline. Those of you who are familiar with the franchise understand what I'm talking about. All of the women in the series were, as a character, made out to be incredibly androgynous, which for science fiction was very strange, very, very weird at the time. One of the things that draws, of course, the science fiction viewership is the way that in most other franchises, they make women very sexualized. Whereas in this particular case, they didn't, which was very odd. Not many noticed it. But still, what does that have to do with Antarctica? I truly believe the writers of this series had some access and insight into the future. Because now we've arrived at a future, 2020, where we see that the idea of gender has become incredibly fluid. The idea that you can just self-identify as this or that or the other has become mainstreamed. Now, that idea having been established, there's something else that the Romulans had that no one else had in the series. They were always seen in what can only be described as Romulan green. It's a very kind of fluorescent, glowing kind of green. Once again, those of you familiar know what I'm talking about. No matter what, that's what you always saw there. engine drives, the color of their ship, all this kind of stuff. And you would have to wonder why. Why in space would creating any kind of color where there's such the absence of light be important to any race? And they're very, very specific in the Star Trek franchise about having everything make sense. Something that was never explained. They were also called the Romulan Star Empire, and that's important because also their ships were driven by a gravity drive. What does that mean? They were able to artificially create a very, 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 very small microscopic black hole, and then the energy created by that is what powered their ships. It made them incredibly formidable. This is also a picture of the Romulan Homeworld. Look familiar? It looks a lot like Antarctica, doesn't it? It looks a lot like Atlantis. And many believe that the culture that created the city of Atlantis based in Antarctica. Now we also see these things, what we refer to as lenticular clouds. They're clouds that appear for no real good reason in the shapes of circles. Also, one of the things that the Romulans could do, no one else could do, was cloak their ships. They could appear invisible. Now, who remembers all of these images from around the world? A sky completely full of evenly spaced clouds, and then just this random circle where nothing appears to be there, but something is there, and you can tell something is there. But some are like, okay, but yeah, wait a minute. We get, I guess, the fact that, okay, if Antarctica's discovery is going to be modern, and in modern times when androgyny is very important to people, we can see why they might have used androgynous women at the time. We can also see, okay, they can cloak their ships, and we're starting to see things in the clouds that look like cloaked ships. We get that. But what does the whole green part that you mentioned have to do with anything? Well, there's a couple of articles out that kind of allude to it. But this one particularly. There are articles all over the internet now talking about green Antarctica. How Antarctica has started to bloom. And there are these vast sheets of green ice. And when you look at the green, it has a very specific, distinct color to it. So these are a lot of things that all by themselves probably seem somewhat circumstantial. But when put together, they start to paint a picture. We have the Romulans, an advanced civilization, far advanced of, at least in the series, the, I guess, Earth civilization at the time. Isn't that what we believe could exist in Antarctica right now? A very advanced civilization under the ice. We start to see Antarctica in 2020 turning very green. What color is the Romulan Star Empire? Green. We are starting to see empty spaces in the clouds that look like ships. And what could the Romulans do? They could make their ships invisible. But aircraft spies gravity waves being sucked into Antarctica's polar vortex. I'll give you the link to this article. The Romulans in the series used a gravity drive. And now we have aircraft spying gravity waves being sucked into Antarctica. So how many more things need to line up? They have gravity-driven ships. Now we have gravity waves in Antarctica. The Romulan homeworld in the series looks almost identical to Atlantis. Atlantis is widely believed to be in Antarctica. The empty spaces in the clouds that look like ships, the androgyny of the time, of the era, I think we are very, very close to some great revelation. And that great revelation is going to have to do with this last unexplored continent. Because something is happening down there that even the scientists that have studied the region can't understand. Yeah, it's getting warmer, but everything is all of a sudden changing. And it's changing much faster than they can explain. And because of everything else in the media, all the political stuff and COVID and all that, all this is getting buried. All this is getting pushed by the wayside. But there are some amazing things happening in Antarctica right now. And it's unfortunate. New Zealand, having recently declared its country COVID-free, is still going forward with restricting their exploration of Antarctica. They have, of 36 studies and programs they had going, they have cut 23 of them. So there's been this retreat. And this is, and you can look this up, this picture I'm showing you right here. This is the, now of course the Romulans are quote unquote fictional. But the way they fictionalized them, they made them seem as if they could very easily be Atlanteans or Antarcticans. So when you go back through everything I just showed, the androgyny, that's the biggest social thing going on right now. It's even made a return, by the way. And the funny thing about the return of this thing called Picard, it's the newest incarnation of Star Trek, is that it centers around the Romulan Star Empire. And when you look back, and you look closely at everything they were trying to say between the lines, in the background, it all starts to make sense of what was really trying to be revealed by Roddenberry. That he was trying to show that there is a culture on the planet far in advance of us, and the time when we would start to discover them, when they would reveal themselves, would have certain markers. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing it in our skies, and for those who are paying attention, we are also seeing it in the media. We are seeing it in entertainment. How many pictures of birds have we shown in Antarctica? And even when you look at old maps, almost on every single one of them, they write Psittacorum regio, royal parrots. There was a time when this color, green, unlike what we know to be blue and purple, was actually assigned to royalty. I think Roddenberry was trying to be very, very subtle about something that he might have seen or might have known. This article here, Jessica Stewart, June 6, 2020, luminous photos of Antarctica shine on a light on a alluring icy blue surface. In this article, and I'll give you the link, she talks about, with her photographer Leah Kennedy, how some things down there seem as if they are giving off their own light. She said the absence of what they believed to be normal sunlight made everything glow with a very strange hue. There's something very different about Antarctica. And I think we're living in a time when it's going to be revealed. So, anyway, when we show images, like this, Give me 1 second for this to catch up. Here we go. Sorry about that. There's something very real about it. I mean, you can't look at a satellite image like this and say, oh yeah, I mean, when you look at it surrounded by all the snow and ice and rock, how can you say that this pyramid, that science would say doesn't exist, could possibly be part of the same thing? I also wanted to show one final thing very near to this pyramid. If you go just to the, I guess it would be south of it, we find this very strange altar-looking area. And the face is incredibly blurry to show in a video. But just above it, we see what looks like a building wall, and it has 3 dark openings in it, 3 dark slits right here. Now, this by itself, somebody could say, oh, you know, that's just a figment of whatever. What if I could show you this exact same thing in another area of Antarctica? Now, this is an entirely different area and in an entirely different year. 1, 2, 3. Right here. That looks like a building structure to me. It just does. What its purpose is, I don't know. But there have been too many things in common that we've showed for to everything we've discovered to be pareidolia or apophenia. So I'll give you these 2 locations. You can look at them for yourself. I think they knew. And they just tried to show it in an incredibly subtle way. Like, share, subscribe.